So we are in a series called The Fight of My Life. And it's a 3-week series. I'm about to break this. I think we're safe. Week 3 of a series. So if you're new to Vibrant and you haven't heard the last couple weeks, you're fine. But I would encourage you to go back and listen to them. I kind of make it, I say it like this. I like to put the cookies on the bottom shelf so everybody can reach one. But today's message is, have you ever felt like you're going through life in circles? Like life's on repeat? Anybody ever feel like that? Like you just keep having the same issues over and over again? Or you look into someone else's life and they keep having the same issues? Like anyone else have that relative that's always broke but always has a get-rich-quick scheme? Anybody else know what I'm talking about? Oh, Brandon, I got this new thing. We're going to flip houses. And if you just invest $5,000 and help me flip this house, I can guarantee $10,000 for you on the other side of the house flip. Really? Have you ever done construction? No. Do you know anything about mortgages and finances? Not really. So how are you going to make money? I watched a YouTube video for 30 minutes and I know how to flip a house. Anybody else have a conversation like that before? Amway? Any Amwayers? Mary Kay? Would you help me sell some makeup? Or how about this one? How about relationships on repeat? Anyone have the relative that like they're on their 5th relationship in 2 years? And you're like, bro, what happened? He's like, she didn't text me back. Look at my phone. And I'm like, bro, you have 37 text messages since last night. I think she was sleeping. I left her 10 voicemails too. You all have a face, right? You all know that person is, right? Or how about this? Maybe you're a student, and you know that other student that always gets bad grades. They're like, I forgot to do my homework. I forgot to study for the test. Well, what were you doing all last night? Well, I was texting my friend about her breakup. And then you failed the test, you got bad grades over your friend who has a new boyfriend every 3 weeks. And she's sad about it. Every 3 weeks. Life on repeat. Or maybe you're a parent and you have kids that play sports. Coaching little kids is a blast. And being on the sidelines with other parents is a journey. Anybody know what I'm talking about? Anybody know how parents can be? I just can't believe they don't put my kid in. I'm like, which one's your kid? They point out their kid. I'm like, so your kid's the one over there doing somersaults by the bench? And you're wondering why they're not in the game? About 5 minutes later, they actually get in the game and they're running over with flowers for mom. I just can't understand why my kid doesn't get put in. It's funny when it's someone else. It's not so funny when it's us. Because even in the same relationship, we can go through a relationship cycle. In our own entertainment, career, it's a different boss, same problem. Different job, same problem. What do you do in life when it feels like you're in a cycle or going in a circle of the same issue over and over and over again? We began the series with this idea that you are a warrior, that you have someone to protect, you have a kingdom to advance, and you have a battle to win. Week 1, we said, name your battle. What's that one thing in your life that if it got better, everything would get better? And then last week we said, when you choose to engage in the battle, the voice of insecurity and fear have a tendency to shout at you. And it was an invitation in the midst of insecurity and fear to choose to stand and engage in the battle, knowing the fear will still be present. We said that oftentimes the path forward starts with a step back. And I think for some of you, you've chosen to engage in your battle. And you've been working for a week or for 2 weeks or much longer. And you're doing everything you know to do, and it just feels like nothing's happening, nothing's changing. You chose to engage in the battle, and all you see is a wall. Today we're going to look into the life of an intimidated warrior who had someone to protect, had a kingdom to advance, had a battle to win, but when he gets to the first battle, he sees a massive wall. And the massive wall was keeping him from the victory that God had promised. We're going to look into the life of a guy named Joshua. Now, a little backstory on Joshua. Joshua had a mentor named Moses. Moses was an incredible leader. Moses spoke to God as a man talks to a friend. He talked to God face to face. It was unheard of in this time. Moses would hear directly from God. They saw the power of God in Moses' life. He led Israel out of Egyptian slavery into the promised land. Right as they're about to go into the promised land, Moses dies, and Moses entrusts Joshua to lead Israel. A new land, a new opportunity, a new battle. And the first battle was the city of Jericho. And Jericho was a city surrounded by a massive wall. And God's plan was circling the wall. God's plan was, here, Joshua, here's what you're going to do. For 7 days, you are going to walk around the wall. You're going to go in circles. And for a while, it's going to seem like nothing's happening. Oftentimes, God chooses a battle plan that doesn't make sense. And for Joshua, the idea of circling carried some emotional weight to it. For the last 40 years, all they've done is circle in a wilderness. They've literally, for 40 years, walked in massive circles in a wilderness, waiting for the right time for God to allow them to go into the promised land. They had a negative view of circling their wall. But God was about to rewrite their understanding of what it meant to circle. So before the battle plans from God were, then the Lord said to Joshua, "See, I have delivered Jericho into your hands, along with its king and its fighting men." Notice this, see, I have. Not I might. Not I'm thinking about it. Not, hey, Joshua, as long as you're good, the walls will come down. He says, no, see, I have. I have already delivered it. See what? The walls are up. The enemy is standing on top of the walls. And at surface value, nothing's happening. And I think that's normal for us. We engage in life. We engage in a battle. And we choose to rebuild the relationship, pursue the career, parent with a new angle, and the first thing we see is a wall. And you're like, what do I do about the wall? And for Joshua, if he just looks with his physical eyes, yeah, the wall's still there. If he sees with his spiritual eyes, now for Joshua has seen the mighty hand of God. And God was about to show Israel that God was going to do a similar thing with Joshua as he did with Moses. God was about to show the kingdom of Israel that I am the God who was, the God who is, and the God who is to come. You see, God has this ability to see in the future. In fact, before you were ever born, God wrote your days, his intended plan for your life in his book. Now, all of us have veered from that original plan. But what makes God God is God's like, okay, I'll still work that in the story. Yeah, that was a really bad decision, but I can still work with that. Yeah, I know you really messed up that part of your life, but I can make it a strength. God was about to show Israel, hey, I'm God, and you're not. I can do what I want to do, but I'm going to do it on my time. And for some of you, your walls, your battle is a marriage. And God's like, see, I've already healed your marriage. You're not there yet. But I'm speaking into your future, not just your present. For some of you, it's provision. It's like, I need God to provide. God's like, I've already provided for your future. I just need you to do what I tell you to do. I've already won your freedom. I've already made a way. And if you could see what God sees, you would engage in the battle differently. God continues and he says, march around the city once with all the armed men and do this for 6 days. Have 7 priests carry trumpets and ram's horns in front of the ark. And on the 7th day, march around the city 7 times with the priests blowing the trumpets. And when you hear them sound a long blast of the trumpets, have the whole army give a loud shout, and then the wall of the city will collapse, and the army will go up, and everyone straight in. Now, if you're Joshua, you're like, come on, God. How about some catapults, some battering rams, some large ladders? Your plan, God, is you're going to put the worship team in front. That'll really intimidate them. And we're going to walk around the wall. This is the plan. Your plan to win the battle is walk around the wall. And here's the lesson that Israel's about to learn. First is you have to circle the promise and not the problem. Because maybe for some of you, you're like, the wall to getting to a healthy marriage is my spouse. And if you circle your problem, it'd be like, have you considered divorce? No. Murder? Maybe. For some of you, it's debt. And it's your wall. For some of you, it's, I know God has plans for a financial future, but the problem's my job. It's my boss. It's my kid. And every parent's got to the moment where like, you know, I brought you into this world. I think I should have the right to take you out. And you can circle the problem. And when you circle the problem, fear comes. The complaining grows. And you have a really hard time not just seeing the wall. And the wall becomes intimidating. And if you're a follower of Jesus, you know, God, I know you can take the wall down. How about you just take the wall down today? God, could you just give me victory today? And God's like, no, actually, I want to teach you how to circle. I want to teach you how to persevere. I want to see if you're willing to do what seems foolish. Because when you circle the wall, you have a choice. 2 things can build when you circle the wall: fear and faith. Which one will win? The one you feed. You can circle the debt and be like, man, I'm going to be broke my whole life. How am I ever going to pay off these student loans? Or you can circle your financial freedom. God, I know that you'll make a way. God, I know that you're my provider. God, would you give me wisdom? Would you give me direction? Would you give me counsel? You can circle the problem with your kid and just see a rebellious kid. Why is my kid so rebellious? I just don't understand. I don't know what else to say to them. And it's just a constant battle and a constant struggle. Or you can say, no, God, this is a promised child who you have destiny and you have a calling and you have an assignment. And God, I know when I look at the wall, all I can see sometimes is a rebellious kid, but I know that you see something different. And God, in the same way that you changed me, I know you can change them. You can circle the marriage problems. Man, we fight all the time. If he would just do this, if she would just do that, if she would just stick to the budget, if he would just talk to me. And you can circle problem. Or you can circle a promise. God, I know you brought us together. I know your plan is to do something great in us. So you can do something great through us. And God, I know that we have this struggle, but God, I know your promises. And God, today I'm going to choose to focus on your promise. The second was, Focus on the word and not the wall. Because you have a real enemy who's aware of your wall and aware of your battle. And he wants to keep your eyes off the word and on your wall. He wants you to not seek wisdom here, telling you this is foolish. This doesn't work. This is outdated. That's not true. The word says you're blessed and highly favored. The word says that you're above and not beneath. That God's plans for you are good. His favors on your life. What you can do, though, is you can elevate the wall to be bigger than God. And when you look at the wall, it can consume your thoughts and your talk. And here's what happens. It might not happen physically, but inside of you, here's what happens. I'm so small and this wall's so big. I'm always going to be broke. It's just never going to be enough. And you can hold on to the offense. I still remember what they said about me. And have these imaginary conversations of the confrontation you wish you could have. It's never going to change. They're never going to change. This situation's always going to be the way that it is. This is impossible. This wall's always going to be there. You know what this looks like? It's worship. Because it's what you trust in and it's what you hold on to. And for some of us, we use the wall. And we hide behind our rejection. And we hide behind the wall, hoping the wall keeps us from getting hurt, because we remembered we were hurt before, and if we could just stay behind the wall, maybe we won't get hurt anymore. So I'm going to hold on to the hurt of my past so I don't get hurt more in my future. And we elevate the wall, and we miss what God has. Which is why Joshua says to Israel, he says, but Joshua had commanded the army, do not give a war cry, do not raise your voices, do not say a word until the day that I tell you to shout, then shout. He's like, be silent. In fact, for some of you today in your wall, this is what you need to hear. You need to be silent. But you know what the problem with silence is? It's awkward. We try to fill the space. I'll prove it to you. Ready? Your uncomfortability is rising. Some of you are getting anxious. And can you imagine Israel? You're an army with the worship team in front, but they're not actually playing their instruments. And for 7 days, I'm sure internally they're like, this has got to look so stupid. I think this is building the confidence of the enemy. I'm pretty sure they're laughing at me. But outside, just silence. So you know what we try to do in the silence? We fill it. Music, TV, phone call. We call them. We're like, can you believe what she did? Can you believe my husband did this again? She overspent one more time. Do you know what my kid did at school? I got another phone call from the principal. Oh, you turn on the news and it's like, you want to build some anxiety, you turn on CNN. I think World War III is about to begin. Have you heard about the recession? It's going to become a depression. We're going to lose the house. We're going to lose. Have you seen the price of eggs and the price of gas? Oh my gosh, COVID is on the resurgence. There's an election next year. Hey, there's a hurricane about 1,000 miles away, but the news says there's 2 little strands that might hit us. Freak out. We try to fill the space, the silence, because it's awkward, with things that just build anxiety and even build the wall. Last week, the story was 300 men versus 100,000 Midianites. This week it's the army of Israel versus a wall. And the plan is put the worship team in front and walk around the wall for 7 days. And then God gives you a plan and it seems a little foolish. You're broke and you're tired of living paycheck to paycheck. And you're like, God, what do you want me to do? God says, tithe. The wall's like, you know the wall can talk too? You can't afford to tithe. The word says, if I trust God and obey God, that he will open the floodgates of heaven and he will prove himself to be my provider. God's plan always seems a little foolish. Someone openly criticizes you, like publicly at work. What do you want to do? The wall will tell you, defend yourself. God's like, don't defend yourself. He says, I'm your defender. The word says that God goes before me and he fights my battles. And he'll silence the voice of my enemies. So we can circle a promise or we can circle a problem. We can circle the wall. Number 3, third thing they learned was listen to the faith voices and not the negative voices. Joshua said, wait to hear my voice. This is really important because with your wall and your problem, everyone has an opinion. And if you provide enough voices in it, man, you will be so confused. I don't know which one to do. I talked to my aunt, and I talked to my mom, and I talked to my best friend, and I talked to her friend, and I met with a couple ladies, and I shared my problem with them. And they said I should do this, but they said I should do this over here. I don't really know what to do. I'm so confused. I'm not sure what to do. Anybody know what I'm talking about? Israel, before Joshua was circling in the wilderness, and on the first lap, they're grumbling and complaining. It's hot out here. We have to walk so far. I would rather be a slave than have to wake up in the morning and have God provide food. And they murmur at every step. Here's something to know, though. The enemy of your soul, the enemy that wants to steal, kill, and destroy from you, the enemy that wants to keep your wall up and keep your attention on the wall so the wall stays there, the enemy cannot read your mind. So he'll build fear inside of you to get you to complain, because when you complain about it, he'll take what you complained about and he'll nurture it. Did you see what she said to you? You should be offended. Remember that last time she said that other thing about you? You should be really offended. You should probably say something negative about her too. He'll take it. He'll nurture it. Do you remember what they did 5 years ago? Do you remember what they did 10 years ago? Man, it's probably going to be your whole story because this is the only story they have in their past. And the scripture says that the tongue has the power of life and death, and those who love it eat its fruit. And here's what happens. When we start listening to the negative voices in our life, because we all have them, they're not even hard to find, we can actually make the wall get bigger. The wall becomes a problem. Sermon fails right here. I'm going to leave that right there. But if you listen to the wrong voice, your wall grows. Because your focus is on the wall. And I think for some of you, you've got some people in your life that they just bring the negativity and they bring death into your battle. And then the battle and the wall will overtake you because you're listening to the wrong voices. In fact, some of you are having a hard time believing that the wall can come down because of the voices you have in your life. And there's some voices in your life that you might need to turn off. That doesn't mean that you don't have a relationship with them, though it could. But it certainly means you don't talk about your wall with them. That's why we have connect groups here at Vibrant Church. So you can find the right people, the faith voices that can speak into your battle and speak about your wall from a God perspective and start praying and believing alongside of you. But for some of us, there's been so many words that have been spoken out loud from the people in our life of death. So many words that have come out of our mouth that we get to day 7 and it's time to shout in prayer. But because of the words of other people and the internal voice that we keep saying out loud, faith is hard to find. So then you need to shout a prayer, and inside, the wall's gotten bigger and your faith has gotten smaller. So how do you reverse the script? You need to have the right voices. In fact, I'm going to show it one more time. You need to limit the voice of the negative people in your life, and you need to stop saying the negative thing out of your mouth. Because in your mouth and in their mouth is life and death. And it says that those who eat of it love its fruit. You know what a gossip loves? Gossip. Because there's more to complain about. There's more to be negative about. That uncle of yours that's always talking about the news and how bad everything is and how the world's going to go crazy. He feeds on the negativity. But when you change the voices that you allow to speak into your battle, you find out the real truth about your wall, that God's already brought it down. You just haven't seen it yet. It says Joshua got up early the next morning, and the priests took up the ark of the Lord, and the 7 priests carrying the 7 trumpets went forward, marching before the ark of the Lord and blowing the trumpets. The armed men went ahead of them, and the rear guard followed the ark of the Lord while the trumpets kept sounding. So the second day they marched around the city once and returned to the camp, and they did this for 6 days. Day 1, walking in faith, being silent, nothing. Day 2, nothing. Day 3, starting to feel a little foolish. You're moving. You're working on your battle. You're doing your part. You've chosen to listen to the right voices, and on day 5, still nothing. You know what we're tempted to do? The more Christian you are, the more you're likely to make it up. How's your week been? Well, breakthroughs really happened. My wall's really come down. No, it hasn't. Nothing's happened. Nothing's happened at all. Well, I really think we're going to see breakthrough. This is the promotion's happening. This next Tuesday, it's going to happen. And because you've been talking so much, you thought it was Tuesday, but it wasn't Tuesday. You're like, but God, I said into my business it was going to happen this week. God's like, that's why I told you to be silent. I said my marriage was going to get better, and it's been about 3 weeks, and there hasn't been a whole lot of change, but I told everyone God was going to heal my marriage and that it was changing and our relationship was changing, but man, it feels like it's the same fight over and over again. And you need to learn to be silent. To feed your faith and not your frustration. Learn to circle your promise. Though you haven't seen the breakthrough, you still believe. God, I believe breakthrough's coming in my marriage. I do believe you're going to provide the right job for me. God, I do believe that you're going to get me into the right school at the right time. God, I do believe that my kid's going to love you all of their days. God, I do believe your word. And I don't see it right now, but I believe it. So we had the ark of the Lord circled around the city, circling it once. This is on day 2. It says, then the army returned to the camp and spent the night there. So we're going back in the story just a touch. Because here's the last one. Rest did not make it happen. For 6 days, they walked around the wall. They did their part. And then they went back to camp, and they rested. You know what rest takes? Trust. But you know what I want to do? I'm a fixer. If you're any fixers here today, I'm a fixer. I'm like, nah, I think Jesus needs some help. I think I could lower, I think, God, if I just did this, I know you didn't tell me to do this, but I think if I just did this one thing over here, I'm going to chip away at this wall, because I believe on day 7 the wall's coming down, but I think, God, you need a little help. Oh, I think I can fix my marriage. I'm going to have the conversation with my husband today. We haven't had a great conversation in 3 weeks, but today he's really going to hear me. I'm just going to work a lot extra. And I bet if I work 70 hours a week, I'll finally get what I need to do. And now you have a new wall. And God's like, no, I need you to just walk around one time. Just once. God, that doesn't feel like a whole lot. Yeah, I just need you to do it one time. And then I'm going to need you to rest. And on day 1, you're fine. On day 6, you're like, God, I showed up early. I stayed late. I focused, but God, someone else got the promotion. God, I thought that was going to be my promotion. I was patient with my kid. I spoke in kindness. I prayed. I believed. But God, they act crazy again this week. And you can build your faith or you can build your frustration. And you can trust God or you can trust you. It's an invitation to circle the promise. Focus on the word. Listen to the faith voices in your life. Obey God. Because the results you really want, you couldn't do. The breakthrough you really need, all of your best effort couldn't make it happen. But Israel obeyed God. They stayed silent. They rested. And on the 7th day, they got up at daybreak and marched around the city 7 times in the same manner, except for on that day they circled the city 7 times. The 7th time around, when the priests sounded the trumpet blast, Joshua commanded the army, "Shout, for the Lord has given you the city." And when the trumpet sounded, the army shouted, and at the sound of the trumpet, when the men gave a loud shout, the wall collapsed, so everyone charged straight in and took the city. Here's the big idea. God won't do your part, and you can't do his. God won't circle the wall for you. God won't make sure that you get the negative voices out and you start listening to the right voices. God's not going to make you get in his word and believe his word. God won't do your part. But you can't bring the wall down. I don't know what the wall is in your battle. But for some of you, it's unforgiveness. God's saying, stop speaking about that place anymore. Let me be your defender. I'm going to heal you. For some of you, it's fear. You know the battle in front of you, but the wall that stands in front of you is fear. But God, I'm afraid. For some of you, it's doubt. God, I know you've been faithful with them, and God, I know you've done things in the past that are pretty cool, but God, I don't know that I've ever seen you bring my wall down. God, I don't have my act together. I still keep messing up. Will you bring my wall down? You are a warrior, and you have someone to protect. You have a kingdom to advance, and you have a battle to win. And today's an invitation to circle your promise. To focus on the word. Listen to God, remove the voices of negativity, invite the right voices into your life, and rest and trust God. Let's pray. God, I pray that you would teach us to trust you. God, that we would be willing to even look foolish. That we would see you bring down the walls. That we would see victory in our lives. I come against all fear and doubt, unforgiveness, and hate. And God, I pray that as we sit silent before you, God, that you would open our ears to hear your voice. God, that we would believe you at your word. That you would do a great work in us so you can do a great work through us. In Jesus' name, amen.